Jeremy, how are you today, man?
Bill, good to see you.
Good to see you too. So let's get us started. What is the best advice you ever got? And introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are.
Yeah, the best advice I ever received is it's not what you do, it's who you work for that's most important if you're not working for yourself. And I took that early on and made sure that people I worked for added value. They weren't sucking me dry. So my name is Jeremie Kubicek, and I'm the co-founder of Giant, and I am an author and speaker, and I create content. But what I do is I basically create content that the world uses. They license from me. They use it inside organizations. Coaches and consultants use it around the world, and our main focus is helping people unlock people.
Cool. Yeah, so great book, by the way, The Five Voices. Great quiz inside that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I love that advice, right, about who you work for. So who your boss is, because who we quit is usually not the job, right? We get the same job, maybe higher elevation, maybe more pay, more responsibility, but it's our boss that impacts the most. So where did you learn that, and how did that play out in a positive or negative way for you?
Yeah, so I was living in Russia. I started some companies in Moscow. I came back to the United States. I was having a hard time where I'm from. I'm from Oklahoma. So I was having a hard time thinking globally from Oklahoma and finding jobs that were overseas. So my dad said at the time, son, it's not what you do, it's who you work for. Find the people you want to work for. So it was really great in the 20s, but you can carry that all the way through. And you can even play it to yourself and go, would you work for yourself? If you're actually an entrepreneur and you have people work for you, would you work for yourself? If not, we've got a problem. Right?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a strong question, man. Would you work for yourself? So, how do we, I mean, not to be funny here, but like, how do we know that we're not just BSing ourselves, right? How is there an assessment to help us know that? Or how do we dig deep and really determine like what that means for us? Because I'm guessing that's more of a personal decision than it is, something else.
Well, you think about like if you think about the bosses or people you've worked for in the past, did you want to work for them or did you have to work for them? And there's a big difference between want to and have to, right? So if you think through, well, who were the two people you wanted to work for, and who were the five, seven, six people you didn't want to work for? What was the difference between them? What did they do? So analyze that first. Then ask yourself that question. And if you have the guts, ask people that work for you to go, hey, do you want to work for me or do you have to work for me? But the reality is you can tell if people are compliant or if they're engaged. And the way that you can tell is if you're always having to light fires underneath people, they probably don't want to work for you. That if you actually light the fire inside someone, it's the pilot light. They're engaged. They're fully working. They have passion. They're excited. You can tell, and you can also tell with your kids. If your kids are rolling their eyes at you, and it could be, and I know there's the teenage years and such, but I'm just saying, like, I've been around a lot of leaders, and I'll meet their kids, and they're like, I'll say, your dad, he's amazing, and they're like, my dad, like him, and they have to. There's nothing you can do about it. No, you can't fire your children usually. So, um, anyway, it's an interesting exercise. So you kind of get a feel. Do people want to be around you and work for you, or do they have to? You'll know. Is that fair? I don't know if that's
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I think so, right? I think so, right? And I guess the point to that is it's more subjective, than it is objective, right? Because we all want different people. We all want to do different stuff with different people. And who's a great boss for me might not be a great boss for you, Jeremy. Is that another way of maybe saying that?
yeah. And I use a metaphor in our book, The 100X Leader. I use a metaphor, and I've just literally found this. I didn't plan this, but this was sitting over here. But this metaphor of a plant. To think every person that you lead is like a plant, and if you're a leader, then you're like the gardener in the plant. So you have a green thumb or a black thumb. If you have a green thumb, you help plants grow. Well, the thing is, what do plants need? Plants need water, they need soil, they need oxygen, right? And so what happens typically is a leader goes, we need to find good plants. So they go online, they go to indeed.com, they go and look for good plants. All right, plant equals employee. They bring the plant in, And they go, oh, this is awesome. This one's great. It's supposed to really bloom. And then they stick it under the desk. 6 months later, they pull it out during a review and they go, plants these days. You can't find good plants. Well, the reality is, the analogy is, does the plant want to grow? Yes or no? Yes. An employee wants to grow. Do you want the employee to grow? Yes. So who's responsible for the employee's growth? You both are. They are and you are. It's mutual responsibility. But what you have to figure out as the employer or the leader of a team leader is you have to find out what type of plant this is. Some plants need more water. Some plants need more sun. Some plants need a different soil. The problem is most leaders treat all plants the same. They line up their plants and they just water them all the same, give them the same amount of sunlight, and then you get different variations of success. So the idea and the metaphor is simply like, look, you're responsible. Leaders define culture. You're responsible for the plants in your atmosphere, which is culture, your greenhouse. Where do you position them? How do you set them up for success? And give them the best chance to grow.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, getting to know our team and understanding what they need to grow, what type of fertilizer works best, how they like to be watered. Do they want to be near the window or away from the window? So important. So let's peel that back a little bit here and let's get a little more practical on that, because that makes so much sense, right? I mean, of course, everybody is different. I mean, if you put somebody there, but sometimes, that doesn't happen in practice. So how do we slow it down so that we can take the time to get to know our plants, our teammates?
So it starts with you, right? You have to know yourself to lead yourself. You actually need to truly know what your tendencies are and who you are. So we created the 5 voices that you brought out and mentioned. So it's basically Jungian typology. It simplifies where Myers-Briggs and Carl Jung and all of those things came from. But it basically goes, there's 5 voices: the nurturer, there's the guardian and creative, and connector and pioneer. So we can play all voices, but you need to know at the core who you are, what your tendencies are, and how that shows up. What's it like to be on the other side of yourself? So for instance, I'm a connector. I'm a connector, creative, pioneer to be exact, but I'm a connector. Well, I know what that does. I'm a translator. I make up 11% of the population. So I'm a minority. I'm a future thinker. I love to translate and help people figure out, and find out. So if I know that about myself, that's a key, because if I'm communicating to a guardian, they're the opposite of me. They make up 30% of the population, and they're my nemesis voice. They can wear me out and I can wear them out. So if I'm a boss and a leader of a group of people, and if I know I have a team full of 3 guardians, maybe 1 nurturer and maybe 1 pioneer, and I'm the connector and I'm the leader, then I'll know what my tendencies are. I'm going to rah-rah. I'm going to talk a lot. I'm going to give them all these ideas, and I could overwhelm them with ideas, and I could always see the future and think about blah, blah, blah. So that could wear them out. Well, I might undermine my own influence because I'm not learning how to water them. So let me take it another way. We deal with a lot of coaches and athletic directors and things like that. Well, a lot of the traditional coaches, they yell. It's lighting a fire underneath someone. And their productivity level is about 30%, because only 30% of the population respond to that. But they do that to everybody the same way. So it's if you've heard of the golden rule, like doing to others as they would want done unto themselves. Well, I don't need a hug. Why should you need a hug? I didn't get training. Why do you need training? Right? So that's misinterpreted. The platinum rule is doing to others as they would want done unto themselves. So you have to, it's the golden rule applied in the right way. So it means basically, what would my nurturer plant want and need? How do I speak their language? Because when I speak their language, there's a better shot that I'm going to communicate, they're going to trust me, and I'm going to get them aligned. And if I have 7 plants, wouldn't it be smart for me to learn how to speak their language?
Yeah.
I'll get more effective. The problem is we all have to make donuts. So we get up and we got to make the donuts and the clients and the work and the drudgery and our kids and blah, 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 blah. So we come in and yell and we do the same thing, expecting different results, which makes us crazy, right? So that ultimately is what I try to do. What we try to do at Giant is we try to give people the language and the tools to communicate and be more effective.
Right on. So I'm a connector too. So probably why you and I connect so well. So it's yeah, right. So, but that's interesting, right? You talked though that the Guardian is 30%, right? So that's 3 times the connectors. So let's talk to them, right? Let's talk to them right now, and let's say, okay, so as a Guardian, how would we reach them? Is it, because obviously it's not yelling at them, right? It's not rah 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 sis boom ba. So what is that? What is that language, Jeremie, that we use to talk better to, or more effectively, I should say?
So let's just say we have a plant. The plant is a Guardian. I'm a connector. You're a connector. What they want is they want logic. They want systems. They want to know. It's all cerebral and thinking and detailed. And they are masters at A, B, C, D, E. There's an order. So if they don't feel that we've thought about the details, then they're going to put their foot on the brake, because we're going to be so far in the future that they're not going to follow us, and they're going to whisper, anyone else know where he's going? I don't know. Remember last time he went off on one of his gallivants, and remember how much money we lost? You remember how, shouldn't we ... So you have to build the bridge with them. And the way that you build the bridge is you bring them in and you go, okay, here's the direction we think we're going to go, but here's why. And they need to understand context, because a lot of them, Guardians are like, if it's not broken, why change it, right? So here's what we think. If we do this, it could lead to this and this. But here's what you're probably thinking. And then you do FAQs. You give as much as possible. Then you ask them, is there anything else I haven't addressed yet that I could answer? And you give them the chance by letting them ask the difficult questions. Now they may pack on questions. They may stack them. Well, what about this and this and this and that? And that? So it feels like an interrogation from a Guardian, but it's a significant group of people. It makes up 30% of the population, but the majority are men, by the way. So they show up as engineers, they show up as accountants, they show up in military and police, fire, and they're present oriented. So they're thinking about kind of today and this week. They're not thinking about a year from now. Wow. So there's a chance, and my wife is the opposite. She's a Guardian and I'm a connector. So there's the chance that we could really, we actually had a hot tub conversation last night that actually was me seeing the future, not knowing how to translate it effectively, where she felt like I was critiquing her business, and I wasn't, but that's how it came across. Well, the opposite could occur. Guardians could feel like they're pouring water on the fire of a connector with all of their questions. So the connector has to be patient with them, knowing that at the end, once you've answered all of the questions on the Guardian, they'll take their foot off the brake and they'll run with you.
Wow. Okay. So that makes sense. So present oriented, the direction and the context, super important, and building that bridge, right, between the future and the right now, and getting them involved by letting them ask questions and letting them, I guess letting them interrogate you, letting them ask what they need to feel safe, right, and to feel comfortable, so that they can kind of, I guess, guard it, right, so they can defend it, because they're worried about looking bad, about not having an answer, about this not working again. And a connector is thinking, well, come on, like, let's go along, get along, let's run. Don't you see this? Yeah.
Let's go. So what's interesting, Phil, is actually there's another group that combination with Guardians, they make up 73% of the population, the majority. They're the nurturers. The nurturers are similar to the Guardians. The difference is the Guardians are more thinkers, cerebral. The nurturers are feelers. And the majority of the nurturers are women, 70% are women out of the 43%. So take 73%, they're thinking about today and this week season. They're not thinking about tomorrow. So those 73%, they'll show up as the nurturers can show up as teachers, nursing. They'll show up as parents and grandparents, and they're nurturers. I mean, they're chicken soup for the soul. They want people to feel good. They want people to, to feel validated. They want to encourage people. They want to make sure everyone's good. So what they'll do is if they see someone who's berating on another employee or putting someone down or someone's being bullied, they'll rush to their aid and they'll patch them up. They're medics. They're always making sure people are good. What do you need? I'm so sorry, Phil. I heard about that. I'm here for you. Do you need a meal? Can I get you a cup of coffee? Is there anything that that type of thing they're serving? So you take that group of people, that's 73% of the population. Now it's really interesting. In rural societies, it moves up even more because the future-oriented voices have moved to the cities. So it might be 90% of small towns are full of nurturers and guardians. So if you're a sales leader, for instance, this would be unbelievably important to understand the dynamics. Who are you selling to, and what's their personality and what's their wiring? Or if you're leading a team, you need to know who you're leading. Or if you're leading a family, I have all my kids. I have a nurturer daughter, I have a creative daughter, and I have a guardian son. And my wife's a guardian, and I'm a connector. Well, wouldn't it be interesting to know that? Wouldn't it be helpful? So if you know that you can lead them because you speak their language, they begin to trust you. You can communicate more effectively. And that's ultimately what the 5 voices is, a communication system.
Cool. So I dig that. That's so important. So you talked about connectors, guardians, nurturers, and creatives. What's the 5th one, Jeremy? Which one didn't we cover yet?
Yeah, so I didn't really talk about the creative much or the pioneers. Okay, so the creative, real fast. The creatives they can see the future. They're like canaries in a coal mine. They can see, they can smell gas or feel it, and they can see opportunities or they can get out. So the idea would be creatives have all of these ideas in their head, but sometimes it's hard to communicate them very clearly. So they have an issue with communication, and a lot of people can misunderstand them. The pioneer is the 7% of the population. They make up over 50% of CEOs or executives because people hire them because they're like generals. They're hired to take ground. See that mountain? We're gonna take that mountain. So a pioneer will allocate people and resources, and they're very strategically put them together, and they'll get fixated on nothing but winning, and that's why they get they get hired. So 7% of the population, very small, but the pioneers, if you're in their jet stream or around the table, that means that you're validated. They think you're valuable for your competency or your credibility. But if you're not around the table, it feels cold as ice. So you could feel used at times. You could feel like they don't even know you exist. And it's not out of ill will. It's they're so focused on winning. So it's an important role. We need every voice. The problem is in a lot of meetings and team leaders, the pioneer can dominate other voices, and then the nurturers go and patch up everyone that the pioneers have blown up. They have a grenade launcher and they can launch people. So every voice has a weapon that shows up under stress. Every voice has strengths and you need every voice on a team. You need to understand the voices if you have a strong team. And you also need to know who you're selling to, who's your avatar. And so a lot of it is just people miss this because they don't understand personality and communication style, and they just treat everyone like themselves. This is how I want to be communicated to. And so they become ineffective at sales or leading people because they don't know other people.
Wow. So as a connector, right, our weapon is cyber warfare. So let's unpack that a little bit. What does that mean, and how does that show up, and how can we how do we notice that so that we can put that weapon away and move back into
Yes.
actually healing mode?
So every voice has mature and immature tendencies. Maturity over time is when you learn something and you stop doing it. You know your patterns, you understand your tendencies, and you change your actions, right? So hopefully, the more mature we are, the more that happens. The problem is that a lot of times, in all of us, the immature will pop up at the inopportune time. Usually, if we're trying to prove ourselves or we're afraid of losing, any self-preservation. So for a connector, we use cyber warfare. It's basically subtle slander. And so the subtle slander is when I look at a situation or a person, if, like, let's just say, Phil, you ticked me off. You said something about me. The connector usually won't come back and talk to you. Cyber warfare is subtle slander. So let's say someone else comes to me and goes, "Hey, Phil, you spent some time with him. What a great guy. We're thinking of adding him to our board." And I'm like, "Phil on your board? Huh. I would have never thought that." So what I've done is I've planted a seed of doubt about you to the other person, all through subtle slander. So he goes, "Is there anything I should know?" I probably shouldn't say, man, but let me know how that goes. And then I walk away. That's cyber warfare. You ever done that, Phil?
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure I have, right? I mean, I think about that. I'm sure that I've done that. And sometimes, without even thinking about it, that happens. And I think part of that is by talking out loud, even if whether it's overt or covert, right? Whether I'm aware or unaware, that thought process of, I'm not sure, from someone who's super expressive like me or you,
Yep.
comes across as indifference.
Yeah.
And right, I mean, it's like, oh, well, he's terrible. Like 1-star reviews still sell. It's the mediocre, the average. Oh, he's okay. That's really going to get us in trouble. So that's that's interesting.
And so what we do is I basically have created systems and certified people on how to do this. So you can actually train. So if you're inside a company, you can train, you can get certified to bring this inside to your team. Or if you're a coach or a consultant or a counselor, you can get certified on how to use these systems. We just use technology and visual tools and make it super simple, but it scales inside large organizations or small teams. Doesn't matter. It scales inside families. Up down to a 7-year-old can figure out certain things. Now, for the voices, it's right around 13 years old. So you can use it at home, but it's made to be used inside organizations. And so that certification process is so fun because now people can add it to their world very inexpensively. And now it's another tool. So we've got 70 tools that we use inside the Giant ecosystem. The 5 voices is one of those tools. So we use the 5 voices, the 5 gears, 100x, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So let's talk about that 100x, right? Because I think that's really interesting. That was, the title. I titled the show, right? How to become a 100x leader. And what you talked about, we have to know ourselves to lead ourselves and to lead others. So that's step 1, right? But 100x, unpack that for us. What does that mean?
Yeah. So that means you and I, everyone listening, there's a number that we have right now over us. Okay. 100 is the goal. So 100 means that we're 100% healthy. We're as healthy as we possibly can. And X is what we do with other people. Do we multiply? Or your options are this. Your options could be, you could be a 40, 60, 80, 100, whatever number in between. And that's the overall health. That means that your purpose and the people in your life, the place you live, the money you make, the provision, your physical health, personal health, all of those things equal 100 equals overall health. So what number are you right now? Are you a 72? Are you 85? And in the book, 100X Leader, we show you how you can actually assess that. It's also on our platform at giant.tv. So, or giant TV, giant.tv. So the X part is multiplication. Well, your options are, you could be divisive. You could be, so you could be a 60 divide or a 40 divide, that means you're toxic. That means you're like jaded and cynical. And so, or you could be 60 minus. So minus, every time I'm around someone, I feel slimed or kind of like, ugh, you know what I mean? Or you can be, most leaders are 75 plus. They're positively reactive, generally healthy. And hey, Phil, if you need me, my door's always open, man. Be glad to help you, but it's up to you to come see me. I'll be glad to help you if you come to me, but I'm not positively proactive. The best leaders in the world, and that's why we said we need more 100x leaders. The best leaders in the world are those who are healthy and they multiply. So we use the Sherpa in the analogy, the Sherpa on Mount Everest, as the example of the best leaders in the world. Because the Sherpa, though they're a people group, they've emulated what leadership is about. They've climbed and they help others climb. So their job is not to climb Mount Everest. So, and I interviewed these guys, and it's really interesting. Their last name is Sherpa. That's how you know they're a Sherpa. So Nibu Sherpa, Niru Sherpa, Anna Sherpa, these are people I interviewed. And when I interviewed them, the aha was, I had asked them, I said, so how many times have you summited Mount Everest? And they're like, I don't even know, but I have helped 20 people summit. It wasn't about how many times they summited. It wasn't about how many times they summited. It was about how many times they helped other people summit. So the Sherpa, the mentality is every Sherpa has 5 to 6 climbers that they help climb. Well, you don't want to follow an asthmatic Sherpa, right? I mean, that's like last thing you want to do is find someone who's smoking and who's having a hard time breathing. That Sherpa has got to be 100x. They've got to be healthy. But what they're doing is they're learning every single person they're helping climb. They know, does this person need a yell? Does this person need a pat on the back? Does this person need just some instructions? So they learn the personality of their climbers. And then they call them up to the next level. They don't call people out. They call them up to the next level. And they're helping people get there. And then there's times where they have to call people. They have to challenge them. Hey, listen, we're going to send you back down. You're not going to make it. This is your summit right here for your benefit and everyone else's benefit, right? So it's not all roses and kumbaya, but all the climbers that I talked to, all they wanted to do was talk about the Sherpa because they have so much trust in the Sherpa because the Sherpa was fighting for their highest possible good. And that's what a 100x leader does. They're positively proactive. They know where you should go and they help you get there. They bring support and they bring challenge and they bring this trust to go, I'm fighting to help you become the best. I'm fighting for your highest possible good. And that's what a 100x leader does. And we just don't have enough of them. We have too many average leaders who are generally healthy and they're reactive. They're positively reactive, and that's not good enough.
Okay, so how do we get there, Jeremie? I mean, right? Positively proactive. I mean, you say it. Sure, yeah, I want to be a Sherpa. I see Ben Lichtenwaller's on here, right? So he's cheering us on, which I appreciate. Thank you for that, Ben. We're glad you're here, right? He jokes, right? He quotes Jeremie here. You don't want to follow an asthmatic Sherpa, but we don't want to follow a weak leader either. So forget about that. That's obviously true, right?
Yep.
But how do we become a better leader? What's like the first couple steps here so that we can be, instead of dividing or minusing or even just adding, how do we get to the multiplication factor so we can get to 100x?
So you have to start with knowing yourself to lead yourself. You actually have to learn to look in a mirror. We have this one tool, and it's in the book, The 100x Leader. I'll send you a link where you can see these and get access to some things here in a minute. Which then you have access to play and watch some of these things. But we even have something called Sherpa training where people can actually go through each week. You add a tool every week into your life. So the idea is you have to know yourself to lead yourself, which means you need to understand your tendencies first and foremost. So I have a tendency log. I have 29 tendencies that I figured out. An example, I've figured out I exaggerate. I have a tendency to exaggerate. So my patterns means when do I do it and why do I do it? I do it when I'm trying to win or trying to prove myself. That's when and why I do it. So I know that about myself now. I can lead myself to a different action. My historic action is to add 3. So if you go, hey, yeah, so how many such and such have you done? Oh yeah, 12. Well, it's not 12, it's been 9, really. But by adding those additional 3, I think it might mean something. Well, then if someone starts counting 12, how could you have 12? Because and they start counting, especially a guardian, because there's no way you could have 12. Then I've proven, and then they go, is he a liar? The consequence, is he lying? Does he do this with everything? And the reality is, then I've created a situation where people may not trust me. I've undermined my trust. So now I know that about myself. I know that's a tendency. So instead, I now tell the truth. What happens when I get to that moment? Don't add 3, don't add 3, don't add 3. That's what I'm telling myself. Don't add 3. Just say it. Just say it. Hey, I've done that 9 times. Awesome. That's cool. And I don't have to worry about the small little white lie of exaggeration. I just tell the truth. Well, I know that about myself now, so I can lead it. Well, I figured out I have 29 of those. Okay. So there's a process of like, So I play detective on myself. And I learned, but I'm doing it. And this is the other one. I'm doing it through a lens we call support challenge. I'm liberating myself. I've learned how to give grace to myself. So I don't dominate myself anymore. And most of you listening dominate yourself. You speak over yourself, negative thought. You tell yourself, God, stop. Like, how many of you admit talking to yourself in a car? You're crazy, right? You talk to yourself. You talk out loud to yourself.
Yeah. More than I want to admit, Jeremy.
And a lot of people will say things like, oh, you need to lose weight. Why are you this way? You're so idiot. Why do you do that? And that negative domination over you. And I've done that. I'm 50 now. I've done that for 48 years of my life. 2 years ago, I stopped. I literally started to support myself and challenge myself, and I've liberated myself. So now I give myself a lot of grace and a lot of truth, a lot of challenge, but it's support and challenge, not challenge with no support. So what I'm telling you is you learn how to know yourself to lead yourself. You learn how to do support and challenge. And then you start to learn your personality and wiring, and you can see your tendencies. Oh, I'm a pioneer. My tendency is to just tell people what I think. My tendency is to override the feelings of others. My tendency is to be so strategic people can feel like they're a pawn. What are those things that you have a tendency to do? But then don't dominate yourself because you do those things. Be aware of them so that you can lead yourself to do something different, a different action. So it's this process of self-awareness with liberation, with understanding your personality. Then you begin to practice learning, know your team to lead your team. Oh, and then you start learning other people. But it always starts with yourself first. Yourself, then your family, then your team, then the organization, then the community. So it's learning how to be intentional, not accidental. And the 100X Leader book, if you like to read books, is a great field guide for that. The 5 Voices book is a great field guide for that. Or you can go to giantcoach.com/Phil. And on that, you can do a couple of things. Number one, you can immediately take the 5 Voices assessment and find out what your voice is. And you can get your voice order, which will lead you, it'll dump you right into Giant TV, our platform, where you can watch videos about yourself. How do you undermine yourself? How does stress take you out? What's it like to be on the other side of yourself, of that personality and that voice? And there's a slew of other videos and resources helping you learn how to know yourself to lead yourself. And then, and last thing on that, if you want to go, oh my gosh, I love this, and you go, I want to be certified on this, or I want to go deeper, there's details on how you can get certified there too.
Awesome. That's super helpful. So friends, if you're listening here, giantcoach.com/Phil. Jeremy and his team set that up for us so that you've got a resource for that, real easy to remember. Talked about leading yourself first. I would say if you're a coach, if you're a leader, start with taking the 5 Voices assessment. That's a great place to start. I started, right? I'm a connector, understanding more of this, right? Get a copy of the book too, so that you can go a little deeper on that, and get on the platform. Check it out. Lots of great tools there to help folks. So much that we could do here, Jeremie. So give us maybe encourage us out here as we take this out here. Give us a little bit of encouragement of what a future might look like. Cast a little vision of what being a 100x leader might look like for a coach or a consultant or for a leader who's looking to get better.
Yeah, so we always say liberation is a lifestyle, and that means you have to fight for your own highest possible good. So you're learning to call yourself up, not out. So things that I've been doing is I've been learning how to eradicate negativity, literally going after everything that is negative and eradicating it, getting it out of my life, working on the things, my own negative thought. And so when you negatives about others, so I'm learning how to assume the best in others, not expect the worst of them. I'm trying hard to learn how to call other people up, not call them out. So, but what that means is I have to do the work internally first. And so for you, if you're listening to that, that's all we've built here are these tools. There's tools, and the tools do the heavy lifting. And you begin to start going, oh my goodness, I do that. But instead of dominating yourself, you start liberating yourself. And you start walking into this high support and high challenge lifestyle. So, but it's a journey, and you have to recognize that too. It's taking me years to get this. I mean, I'm giving you, and all of these resources and tools basically are all the things I've screwed up in. I've just packaged them, and I've actually created visual tools with a common language so that people can actually use the tools to actually help themselves become more effective as a leader. So if you want to know yourself to lead yourself, that means then you have to start with understanding your tendencies and knowing that the tendencies will never change, but your actions can change.
That's such good stuff. So friends, if you're listening and you hear that, right, your tendencies, your actions, get clear, get some clarity, understand who the heck you are first. Lead yourself first. Take the 5 voice assessment, get a copy of the book. It's easy to read, super helpful, packed with great stuff. Jeremie, you and your team have done a great job of putting this together at giantcoach.com/Phil. I just want to say thanks for the time, thanks for the insight, and thanks for the encouragement that it can be done and that there can be a better tomorrow, Jeremie. Thank you.
Well, and I want to thank you, Phil, for you're a connector, but you're really good at what you do, and I know your heart behind it. And I'm like, you're trying to help people get better, which is awesome. We need more people like you. So thanks for that.
Oh, thank you, Jeremie. All right, friends. Well, thanks for listening. Get started. Go to giantcoach.com/Phil. Take the 5 voice assessment or pick up a copy of the 5 voices book. Thanks so much.